This is another story called Jack and the Beanstalk, but this one is written a little bit differently, and it's told by Richard Walker and Naomi Sharkey. So, as you're listening to the story, I want you thinking how it's the same or different from the other Jack and the Beanstalk story that you heard. Jack lived with his mom and Daisy the cow in a farmhouse a little way out of town. Jack's mom liked to do just a little of this and a little of that as well. They didn't have very much money, but they didn't care very much. They were still happy. Then one day there was nothing left to eat, not even a crust of old bread, and with no money left either to buy anything. "It's no good, Jack," said his mother. "We'll have to sell poor Daisy the cow. You had better get up early tomorrow morning and take her to the market. Make sure you get a good price for her so we can have food to eat." Jack knew better than to argue. Besides, he was very hungry. So the next day he got up at sunrise and set off down the lane with Daisy in tow. That means that Daisy was walking behind him, being held on by a rope. He had not gone very far when he came around the corner and he bumped into a funny little man. The man was wearing a big baggy jacket with big baggy pockets. "Good morning to you," said the man. "That's a nice looking cow you have there. Do you want to swap her to me?" Swap means to give something to each other. Jack remembered what his mother had told him, so he said, "What will you give me in exchange for this cow?" "These," declared the funny little man, and he dug his hand into his deep pocket and pulled out 6 plump beans. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. "Those?" said Jack. "Yes," said the funny little man, "these. Don't think these are just ordinary beans. Oh no, these are magic beans. But you will have to be careful with them. I've lost the instructions for them, so I'm not exactly sure what they do." Well, there was nothing Jack loved better than magic, so he handed over Daisy and took the beans and hurried home. As soon as he reached the back door, Jack burst into the kitchen and proudly threw the beans down on the table. "Watch this!" exclaimed. "What's this?" said his mother. "Oh dear," thought Jack. "They're magic beans, Mom. I swapped them out for Daisy. At least we've got something to eat." "Well, we will when they grow." Jack's mother was furious. Do you know what furious means? It means very, very angry. Why do you think she was so angry at Jack? Yes, I think she was so angry because she wanted money to be able to buy food. Instead, Jack brought home 6 magic beans. She got so angry, her face got white, and she shouted and stamped her feet. And then she threw open the window and threw the beans outside. That night, Jack and his mom went to bed feeling miserable and so hungry. But in the garden, things began to happen. The beans slipped down through the cracks in the ground, and their roots wriggled deep into the earth, and shoots pushed upward. They burst through the hard crust of the soil, and twisting and tangling together, they grew high into the sky. They kept on growing and growing and growing until they reached the land of the clouds. Then one wiry tendril reached down to the house and went on Jack's window. "Who's that?" Jack yawned. He saw strange shadows in the moonlit windows, and not sure whether this was a dream or a real adventure, he walked across the room and threw back the curtains. There, bending and swaying in the moonlight, was the most enormous beanstalk he had ever seen. "I wonder where the top of it goes," said Jack to himself. There was only one way to find out, so without stopping to think twice, he got out of the window and started to climb. Soon the house was just a tiny dot below him, and he made his way up. Finally, he reached the land of the clouds. and stepped off the beanstalk into fluffy gray ground. In the distance, he could see a huge castle. Jack walked straight up to it and knocked on the door. He heard the clang of keys being turned and the rumble of bars behind being slid back and the rattle of chains being unfastened. Then at last the huge doors creaked open a crack and he saw a little old woman looking at him with the light of a candle. "You can't come here," she whispered. "He'll be back soon. Go away." "Oh, please," Jack begged. "I'm a stranger here and I'm starving hungry. Can't I just come in quickly for something to eat?" The woman looked at him more closely and saw that he seemed to be a nice-looking boy with a nice smile. "Very well, you can come in just for a minute," she said, "but don't let him catch sight of you or he will eat you." "Who's he?" asked Jack as they made their way along the dusty castle hallway to the big kitchen. Lining the walls were mounds of huge, bulging sacks, which jingled as Jack brushed up against them. "The giant lives here, of course. If he catches you, he'll eat you for sure. He's got a bad temper, so you better keep out of his way. Hide among these sacks if you hear him coming." Then just as she finished speaking, there was a crashing of heavy footsteps outside the room. Jack only just managed to hide behind a sack when the door burst open and in barged the giant. "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of a stinky man. Where is he, woman? Where are you hiding him?" The giant sniffed his way around the room until he came close to where Jack was hiding. "Oh, don't be silly," said the old woman. "All you can smell is the stew that I've been cooking. I was trying a bowl of it to make sure that it was good enough for you. Would you like some?" Soon the giant had slurped his way through the enormous bowl of stew. He burped loudly and then he demanded, "Fetch me my goose. I want some more gold." So are you listening? Is this a little bit the same but a little bit different than the other story? In the other story, did he have a chicken or a goose? But in both stories, is there a giant that lives in a castle in the clouds? And think about whether in both stories did they have a little woman who greeted Jack? And in both stories, did they have magic beans? Were they the same number of beans? You think about all those things as I continue to read this story. The old woman slipped out of the room and she was soon back, cuddling a huge, very sad-looking bird in her arms. Peeping out from his hiding place, Jack watched as the goose began to lay eggs. Each of them was made out of gold. As each egg appeared, the giant put him into a giant egg box. And then he demanded, "Now fetch me my harp. I want some music." This is a harp. It's a music that you play by pulling on the strings to make beautiful sounds. Once again, the old woman ran out of the room and came back holding a beautiful harp made out of gold. Even the strings were golden. "Play, harp, play," shouted the giant, and as if by magic, the room was filled with the most beautiful, gentle music as the strings began to vibrate all by themselves. Soon the giant fell asleep, and his snuffling and snoring echoed around the room. Jack crept out from his hiding place and quietly began to drag one of the bulging sacks full of coins across the kitchen floor. It was very heavy. And it jingled as he pulled it, but the giant did not wake up. Jack heaved and pulled and dragged the sack right out of the castle, across the cloud, and to the top of the beanstalk. The sack was too heavy for him to carry any further, so he left it there and slid down the beanstalk by himself. When he reached home, Jack found his mom staring up at the beanstalk and scratching her head. "Rope!" cried Jack as he sprang to the ground. He ran off to the shed and came back a few minutes later with great coils of rope wrapped around him. And then he set back up to climb up the beanstalk with the rope. At the top of the beanstalk, Jack tied one end of the rope to each other, and he tied it to the sack of gold, and he started to lower the sack. After a while, he felt the rope become loose, and he knew that the sack had reached the ground safely, and his mother had untied it when it had reached the ground. Jack headed back into the kitchen to get another sack. He crept past the giant, and the goose looked up hopefully and whispered, "Please, can I come too? I don't like living here. You wouldn't need to take the sack then. I could lay you as many golden eggs as you want." So Jack picked her up and ran out of the room. In the hallway, he bumped into the old woman. "Can I come with you as well?" she asked. "I don't want to live here with the giant anymore." "Of course," said Jack. "Here, you take the goose. I'm going to go back for the harp." But as Jack picked up the harp, it suddenly cried out, "Hey, what's going on? Who are you? Help, help!" Jack raced out of the kitchen just as the giant woke up and saw what was happening and began to chase Jack. Faster and faster ran Jack with the golden harp, and the giant came closer and closer. He reached to the top of the beanstalk. Jack could feel the giant's hand at the hairs of his neck. The old woman started slithering down, carrying the goose. Jack slithered down behind her with the harp. They could hear the giant shouting as he tried to follow them. The beanstalk bent and swayed wildly, first to the left and then to the right, but the old woman and Jack reached the ground safely. Jack grabbed the rope and he pulled the beanstalk all the way down until he could see the giant right near him. And then, as the giant was looking at him, he let go, boing! And the giant went flying out into outer space as the beanstalk shot upright like an enormous catapult. That's a machine that will make things fly through the air. Unable to hold on any longer, the giant flew off into space. He soared away and was never seen again. And as far as I know, he's still up in space. The old woman went inside to make a pot of tea. Mom put the golden harp on the kitchen dresser, and Jack made the magic goose a special hut to live in. He put the sack of gold in the basement and took out a coin whenever he needed to buy something. And the last time I went to visit, the harp played fancy music, so we all had a wonderful party. The end. So is this book a little bit the same and a little bit different? Let's talk about it.